and welcome back to Bookish Theories. Today we dive back into the Dark Moon universe to take a look at the new information that we got from ENHYPEN's Memorabilia. In this video we'll mainly focus on two things, number 1 Fatal Trouble and how the song fits into the storyline, and number 2 the updated timeline of the events from the 19th century to present day. I also wanted to include a breakdown of The Priestess Oath, which is the book that you get when you buy Varger's version of the album. As it turns out though, it's all in Korean and more than 80 pages long, so unfortunately I'm gonna need a bit more time to go through it. From what I could gather, it talks about the creation myth of Vargar. It gives a lot more context on the culture and history of the ancient kingdom, not to mention that it explains what's the deal with the blood altar and Selen's ritual. This book goes hand in hand with Dark Moon the Blood of Vargar, which again they just released in Korean, so I'm sorry to say but you'll have to wait a bit more for my breakdown of that part of the story. A few months ago though I promised you a full breakdown of the blood altar, and that one is still coming actually. It's taking me a long time because I'm including both the webtoon and the Wattpad, but if you're interested in that, Dark Moon or ENHYPEN in general, don't forget to subscribe so you can catch my videos as soon as they come out. Also, since we're here, don't forget to like, comment, share with other friends, because the more you guys engage with the videos, the more the algorithm recommends it to other people as well. Thank you so much for your help, and now let's go back to ENHYPEN. Now, when it comes to Memorabilia, the first thing that we need to understand is what Memorabilia is and how it fits into the context of Dark Moon. Memorabilia is a word that refers to objects collected in connection to people or events that are deemed worthy to be remembered. It could be pictures, small objects, or pretty much anything that helps you remember something that is important to you specifically. As vampires that they lived for centuries but forgot where they come from, ENHYPEN care a lot about their memories. In the prologue of Children of Vanfield, we discovered that the boys keep their memorabilia in a cookie tin box that also turned out to be the design of this special album. In there they store the memorabilia they must never lose, the only things that they have left to connect them to their past. Since they're vampires, the boys are never bound to the same place. They must always move, change identity, occupation, erasing their past as they move on to the future, so it's essential for them to never lose their box of memories. Its contents are the only things that connects them to the many lives they've lived throughout history, so they care a lot about them. As we see in a second, all the clues hidden in the box help us piece together the timeline of their life from the 19th century to present day, but before we get to that, I want to take a look at the title track and how it fits into this concept. Now, paradoxically enough, Fatal Trouble is a song that fits the theme by contrast. Memorabilia is all about cherishing memories and always remembering the important things, but Fatal Trouble talks about the desperation and confusion they feel in forgetting what truly matters. In the story, the boys want to remember, yes, but for the longest time they don't even realize they forgot the princess that all of them used to love. She is the woman that gave them their powers, that sacrificed herself to save them, and even if their duty was to protect her, they forgot all about her the moment they were sent to the future. In the song, this memory loss is compared to a fatal trouble because it causes them to lose themselves as memories come undone. In the story, their sense of self is very much connected to their duty. Their fate is to protect Princess Selen and to save her, but their own admission, this is what they feel born to do, so the moment they forget about her, they not only forget the person they love, but also the person they are. Losing memory of this loved one is compared to a downfall into chaos, which they wouldn't even mind if it wasn't for the overwhelming anxiety they feel at the prospect of losing this person. The more memories get blurry, the more they feel lost. The more they feel lost, the more they don't know what to do. And the confusion gets even worse when they finally see a person that reminds them of this lost memory. In the story, the vampire lords remember their destiny only when they meet Sua, which is the reincarnation of Princess Selen. The song portrays their disbelief in meeting her for the first time, but also the subsequent confusion they feel in their heart. Now, to be honest, I feel that this song is mostly from the perspective of Eli, because he's the one that has romantic feelings for her. In the video, for instance, we see that as the boys travel through the ages, it's Eli the only one that sees Sua on the train. He is the one that has a strong reaction when looking at her face, so I think that the song should mostly be read from his point of view. Now, what I'm going to say is a bit of a spoiler for The Blood of Vargar, so if you don't want to see any spoilers for that, feel free to skip ahead. Towards the end of that book, the story connects us right back to the events that we saw back in the Blood Altar. Not only talks about Selen's sacrifice and what happens the night of Dardan's treason, but it also ends the same way the Blood Altar begins, that is with Eli meeting Sua for the first time. In The Blood of Vargar, Eli and Selen actually share a very touching moment that takes place while she's heading towards reincarnation. Knowing it might be the last time they ever see each other, Eli would like to confess his love for her, but she stops him because she cannot bear it. Instead, she asks him for one last favor, and the favor is to find her no matter what. Selen begs Eli to find the hair that doesn't know him, and as the fabric of space-time starts to bend, she kisses him one last time, and and hopes that one day they can finally be happy like normal people. I think that this part was so sad and beautiful, to be honest. It perfectly fits the theme of fatal trouble, especially if we consider that despite his love, Ailey ends up forgetting Selene as well as a request to be found. Throughout the ages, we know that the boys dream about the princess they forgot, and Ailey especially feels heartbreak every time he thinks about her. This is because he might have forgotten who she was, but his heart didn't forget his love for her. Like the princess said, the two of them only reunite when fate allows it, and Fatal Trouble very much portrays this moment. At the beginning, in fact, the speaker cannot believe their loved one is in front of them. Everything looks the same. Sua looks exactly like Selene, but the smile is different, and as Ailey looks beyond their eyes to look for the princess, what he sees is unfamiliar. As this fatal trouble unfolds, he is confused because his memories are blurry and he cannot remember anything, but he feels the need to protect this girl. After going through chaos, by the end the protagonist lets go of his doubt and becomes convinced he is not wrong. He really knows this person and realizes that despite this fatal trouble, nothing has changed because his love has stayed the same. Now, if Fatal Trouble focuses a lot on the romantic aspect of the story, the rest of Memorabilia is much more lore-based, so much so that even the video shows us the timeline in the form of a train journey through the ages. Thanks to the clues in the concept photos and the objects found in the box, we can actually get a very good idea of what these vampires have been up to, so let's start from the beginning and move on from there. As we know, the story of the Vampire Lords begins all the way back in the year 1000, where the boys were knights belonging to the royal guard in charge of protecting Princess Selene, who is the legitimate heir to the throne. Chancellor Dardan is obsessed with the princess and wants her power for himself, so he stages a coup, the kingdom falls, and Selene is forced to sacrifice herself in order to save what can be saved. To protect the powers of Vargar, Selene shares them with the knights. She seals them inside of them, and then ships the boys off to the distant future so that Dardan cannot get to them. At this point, Selene's most trusted advisor is Marge, a vampire lord that is also her teacher. Before dying, the princess entrusts Marge to find the boys and wait for her to be reincarnated. Marge fulfills this promise, and together with her followers, she establishes Vanfield House. This is an orphanage run by vampires with the purpose of raising the vampire lords. As it turns out, in fact, when the boys got sent to the future, they got Benjamin buttoned back into their baby form, so as Marge waits for Selene to come back, she has to protect the children and raise them back into adulthood. In the Blood Altar, Solon says that the boys stayed at the orphanage for 100 years before escaping the night of the fire that destroyed it. This is an event that is also referenced in Fatal Trouble, and still according to Solon, it's been 120 years since then. Bear in mind, the Blood Altar is set in present day, so let's say 2022 because it's the year it came out. This tells us that the fire happened in 1902, and the boys have been trapped in the orphanage since 1802 at least. In Children of Vanfield, the story begins in the 1840s and then jumps to the 1890s, so the timeline checks out so far. At the beginning of the 19th century, Marge finds them and puts them in the orphanage. Then throughout the century they go from babies to teens, and eventually in 1902 they escape the night of the fire as they're almost as old as they were in their original form. Now, what happens after the fire is still a bit of a mystery at the time I'm recording this. We don't know much about the following decades, but in the Blood Altar, Ailey and Shion tell Sua some important information. The day of their bloody birthday, Sua goes to their house in the woods, which is a house that they inherited from a long-time sponsor. At this point, we have no idea who the sponsor is, but Ailey says that this person gave them shelter when they ran away from the orphanage and then left them the house when they died. Fast forward a few years, the cartoon tells us that the boys became spies during a war, and this I think is the era that was introduced in Memorabilia. The concept photos of this special album are set in 1967, where the boys are spies on a mission. Considering that there is a war going on in the plot, I think the boys might be members of the Peacemaker, which is an organization that at this point we know nothing about, but I think might fit the war subplot. By the way, on a side note, when I mentioned this on Twitter, some people were a bit worried about the war concept, but let me remind you, Dark Moon is not set in our world, and all the locations mentioned do not exist in reality. Sure, the Dark Moon universe is similar to our own, but it's not the same. In Memorabilia, in fact, we discovered that the boys have been living in Bakhmosha, a fictional city in the fictional nation of Yevkin. According to Shion's immigration document and this group picture, the boys moved to Yevkin in 1960 and have been living there for 7 years as of the beginning of their mission. In Bakhmosha, each member seems to be involved in this spy conspiracy, but at the same time they also have their own cover-up jobs to better fit into society. In January 1961, for instance, Gino gets his license and becomes a pilot. In the box we also find a business card of him working at a place called Walter Mansion, but to be honest I have no idea where to place this in the timeline. Maybe he's doing both at the same time, maybe it happens later, but just know that in 61 1961 is a pilot for show. In the same year, Solon becomes a ballet dancer and joins the ENHYPEN National Ballet Company. In March 1962, Jacka gets his medical license and starts practicing as a surgeon at the Bakmosha Hospital. Ian gets his driving license and becomes a taxi driver, while Shion starts working at the Rosa Plaza Hotel in Bakmosha. Noah instead opens his very own toy shop, but in the box we also find his firearm license, and in the pictures we do see him carrying a gun. Last but not least, we have Eli, who becomes the owner of the Vice bar, named after a type of Slavic vampire. The bar acts as a front for the boys' spy mission, so much so that the concept photos are actually set in a secret room instead of Vice. Now, as of right now, there are no additional information about this mission. We don't know what they're doing in Bakmosha, who they're spying on, what's their goal. We also have no idea where they go in the 70s or 80s, but we do know that at some point in the 90s, the boys eventually established Vesselsoft, which is the company that we also saw in Future Perfect and Blessed and Cursed. According to the website, Vesselsoft is a software company with the mission of bringing worldwide connection to people's homes. To be honest, I think that this is an alternative version of Microsoft, if you will, and through this company, the boys make big money. Even if we actually don't know what every member does in Vesselsoft, we do know that Gino still flies their plane and that Jacka is a senior programmer at the company. He's also the one in charge of erasing their identities and giving them new ones, but as for the others, it's still a mystery. In the box, however, we do have a clue about Solon because he is associated to a place called White Fen Cafe. I know we don't have a date for it, but I'm still placing it in the 90s because if you look at the address, it's in the same place as Vesselsoft. The cafe is close to the company, maybe even a part of it. Either way, while Jacka is basically inventing the internet, Solon is nearby making vanilla lattes, so make of this what you will. As we saw in both Blessed and Cursed and Children of Vanfield, Vesselsoft is eventually destroyed on New Year's Eve 1999, and the boys once again move and change their identities. In the meantime, around 2002 or 2003, the werewolf pack is slowly coming together. Khan lives in a small town called Grayville and joins forces with the other members to fight the Red Hood Sisters, which are a group of vampires with hypnotic powers similar to Shion. The pack later gets to Riverfield and they eventually starts attending the Sunshine City School, where they join the netball team and break every record previously established. This is until the 7 vampires decide to move to town. At this point, we're finally getting to present day, where the boys become students at the Desalis Academy and join the netball team that will defeat the werewolves ever since. On January 23rd, 2022, Ellie sees Sua for the first time, and on January 24th, a new semester officially begins at Desalis. The last document we find in the box is Ellie's library card that will expire in 2025, which is probably the year he'll graduate from the academy. So far, this is all I have for you, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.